Hi folks, Bob Collins for Diver Supply. I've had a couple of comments and questions over the past few months, and of course I get a wide variety of questions from you folks, and I appreciate it. That's what I asked for. And it gave me a bit, this last one I've got was about somebody that was in their pool training and was saying that they hate that the fact that they keep bumping their head on the first stage, and when they shift the BC around, like I showed in that other video, they keep bumping the top of their butt. So at the end of the day, the first day, the top of their lower back, their top of their butt, was extremely sore, and they wondered what they could do about it. And they were wondering if scuba diving was really going to be a sport for them. So what I suggested was going to a compact 80 steel tank. Now this is a high pressure tank. I've got one down here that I'm going to be showing you. And what I did, and what really happens a lot of times is, and I don't mean this in any disparity at all, but sometimes people that are vertically challenged, it's usually because they're not only have shorter legs, but they have shorter torsos. And when you've got a fairly short torso and you're wearing a regular 80, and again, the 80s that are out there, they're aluminum, they're 3,000 PSI, and they're pretty much the industry standard of scuba diving across the world. So if you're going to go rent, or if you're going to be on a dive boat or whatever it happens to be, you're probably going to run into a regular aluminum 80. Now, it is what it is. It's an 80 cubic foot. Sometimes we call them speed limits, because on a 60-foot reef, the average person, again, I'm speaking about the average person, on a 60-foot reef, they're going to be at 55 feet, something like that. They're probably going to be there about 35 minutes or so until they reach their low on air. I didn't say out of air, I said low on air point. And then they're going to be coming up to their safety stop to be able to get back on the boat with a few hundred PSI. When we are able to start looking at some of the other tanks out there, a lot of times people just want to stick with an 80. They're not really interested in a 100 or a 117 or a 133, that sort of thing. They're just your average recreational scuba diver, and that's fine and dandy, but they want to be comfortable in their diving. So that's why I tend to recommend the compact 80 versus a regular aluminum 80. Now what I've got here, this is a Aqualung extra small in this particular unit, and this is the Lotus. In this particular unit, it's a combined size. And what you're looking at and what you're seeing is basically how it would normally fit on a tank, with the neck collar material, not the handle inside, but the neck collar material being held up. It's just about level, maybe a smidge below, but just about level with the top of the valve. And when you look down here at the distance between the bottom of the BC and the bottom of the tank, and this doesn't even have a boot on it. If it had a boot on it, it'd probably stick down another ½ inch or so. So you can imagine when somebody's diving and they're in that neutral buoyancy position, if it's mounted like this, then they're likely it's going to be hitting them in the top of the butt. Now I'm going to adjust this and put it on a compact 80 and let you see what that looks. So stick with me for a second. So here's a compact 80 with that same BC on it. Now, one thing that's a little bit different about these steel tanks is the neck is a little bit longer than what you're going to see on these aluminum tanks. Now, this tank is about, to the top of this valve, is about 24 inches with the boot on here. The tank by itself is just by itself, no valve, no boot, is about 20 inches. And when we look at that aluminum is about 27 to 27 and a half inches, depending on the boot and the valve. So this is going to be a lot more comfortable. And you can see I've got it pretty much mounted the same way on the valve and around the neck with the valve strap here. This tank weighs 31 pounds by itself, and the aluminum tank weighs 28. This tank is negatively buoyant when it's full, and this is a 3,400 PSI tank, so it carries, you know, a little higher pressure, but the same volume of cubic feet of air. But this tank is negatively buoyant, 8 pounds, and as it gets getting close to near empty, let's call it 500 PSI, then it's negatively 2 pounds, whereas that aluminum tank I just had up here, the difference is it is 2.5 pounds negatively buoyant, and then as it starts getting close to empty, it's 2.5 pounds positively buoyant. Now, yes, there's Catalinas, there's Luxfords, there's a few different aluminum tanks out there as far as 80s, but I'm talking about in general the average aluminum 80 out there. So a lot of times I'll tell people that this compares in size. This is an aluminum 63. So you can see height-wise, it's virtually the same height. And if somebody's been forced to use a 63, and when they get to the low on air point, let's call it 800 PSI, and now they're having to come up and their partner's still got 1200, then you can see how much better it would be for that person to use a compact 80. So that's a little bit about how to adapt and how to make equipment work for you in the scuba diving world. I'm Bob Collins for Diver Supply. Appreciate you watching. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button. Doesn't cost you a thing. And we're on our way to 10,000 subscribers. Love for you to be one of those. And as I always say, dive safe out there. Thanks again.